Good morning, everybody. There is a disturbing and dystopian bill going through the state legislature in California at the moment, but it's similar to things that are happening around the world. And it will make parents guilty of child abuse if they do not affirm a child's gender identity, if they say they have a different gender identity than their biological sex. Now, this is Bill AB 957. There's a few reports about this in various places. Originally, it was put through or presented to the legislature on May the 3rd, and it wanted to make gender affirmation a factor in child custody cases. Now, that's bad enough that, if the parents are getting divorced, divorce is a tragedy. I mean, there should be far, far more done in society to try to prevent divorce and in all levels. But if that happens, if it comes to that situation with a family, if one parent, if the parents have a child who has been brainwashed by the alphabet people into believing that they are a different gender to what they are, and one parent affirms the child, another parent says that's ridiculous. Of course, they're not that gender. They are their natural biological sex. What this bill would do is automatically give custody to the gender affirming parent. But the bill has been hijacked and it's been made even worse by an amendment that has come through on June the 6th that actually will say, beyond child custody cases, if the parents or a parent does not affirm gender, if they're not gender affirming, then that will be a criminal offence. So the child will be taken away from the parents by the state, and the parents can be charged with child abuse. Now, I don't know what the penalties are for that in California, but I assume, like most places, there will be very, very heavy penalties for that, talking decades in jail. I mean, quite rightly, for real child abuse, but this is not. This is actually, making something criminal, which should be done, because there's so many activists going around confusing children and trying to get them to accept that they're not the biological sex that they are, with this idea of gender, which has been injected into our culture in the 1950s, and it's just grown and grown like a cancer. Now, I never heard of transgenderism, to be honest, until about 2015, 2016. And when I first heard of it, I just thought, you cannot be serious. This is just utterly ridiculous. It's a joke, isn't it? But I thought this is never, ever going to go anywhere. I mean, I know people have tried to bring in all kinds of woke stuff. I mean, before people even started using the word woke it's in normal conversations. That was about 2019. Before then, people just said politically correct. Yeah, people have brought in all kinds of politically correct nonsense over the years. But I thought this is just balmy. It's never going to catch on. But here we are, 7-8 years later, and states and provinces and nations around the world are making laws in order to criminalize you if you are not gender affirming. And that means accepting this idea that people can change their gender and you have to treat them as the opposite gender or whichever one of 100 made-up genders that they say they are on any particular day. I mean, beyond that, though, with children, when they get captured by these activists, then they're encouraged to be or live like the opposite sex or whatever gender they say they are, and then to get puberty blockers, and then cross-sex hormones, and then these terrible surgeries that ruin a person's body. Yeah, a boy's body, they'll have bits of their body removed. Girls, they get bits of their body removed, and so on. I couldn't imagine that this would, it didn't even go through my head, until 5 years ago when I started seeing this was happening. And now California here is saying, unless you support this, you're a criminal. So you're a criminal for opposing these kinds of things being done to children, when actually this is the exact opposite of what should be a crime. Even Elon Musk has said and called for people who do this kind of thing to be put in jail for child abuse. But California is saying, unless you support this, this is child abuse. You've got similar things going on around the world, because now there is a move to, as they say, ban conversion therapy. New Zealand did that in 2022. Malta was the first country to do that in 2016. Between those two, I think Austria, Germany, Canada, and a few other countries and a few other states in America have passed laws to, as they say, ban conversion therapy, which again would mean that it's a criminal offence to try to stop somebody from expressing their preferred gender, or to say this isn't natural. You're not a girl if you're a boy, or you're not a boy if you're a girl, or you're not a man if you're a woman, you're not a woman if you're a man. And that's become criminal in some places. They're trying to push it in England. And it's the fake Conservative Party that have been doing this, particularly Penny Mordaunt, who wrote a 75-point LGBT action plan that was published in 2017, I think, or 2018. Gone a little bit quieter on that now, because there's been a lot of pushback in England. And, I'm no fan of the current Prime Minister at all, Rishi Sunak. But one good thing he has done is he said that biological sex is important, and they seem to be rowing back from or delaying the move to bring in a law about banning conversion therapy, which I'm completely against any such law at all, because it would it undermines your freedom of speech, and it stops you from protecting your children from the alphabet activists who are going all around the country or the world. They're trying to get into schools, particularly. They're targeting schools and trying to indoctrinate and confuse kids to get them to change gender. Why? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Look, if adults want to do that, I would very, very strongly recommend that you don't. You get counselling or prayer or pastoral care or therapy for your gender dysphoria. But if you want to go and do that as an adult, you can do that. It's really, I really wouldn't recommend you do anything like that to your body at all. But, you have the free choice to do that. But you do not go and try to get kids' bodies and minds and souls ruined like that. Absolutely not. That is a red line, and we will not have that. I lead the Heritage Party, and we're the first party in the UK to say this must not happen in the UK. There must not be any law that bans people from trying to turn people the right way up again when they have been targeted and confused and captured by the alphabet people, and they want to get them to ruin their bodies. We must have a method to try to help people who have got gender dysphoria, and also unwanted same-sex attraction as well. Which is a whole other issue, but that sort of comes along with the package of banning conversion therapy and requiring people to be gender affirming. Even in England now, the NHS which is the state-run health service. Now, there's a lot of issues with that itself, but they, for over 10 years, have run their health service on the basis of being gender affirming. They've just got rid of that, as far as I understand. I need to do a little bit more research into that, but I've just seen this weekend some reports that they've abandoned the gender affirmation model. Thank goodness for that, because it's done so much harm to people, as has Norway. They've just abandoned the gender affirmation model for healthcare, and Finland as well. You know, those countries are normally on the forefront of wokery, but on this issue, they seem to have seen some common sense, a rare piece of common sense from the Scandinavian countries that are pushing wokery on their poor people, more than anything. But there we go. So this is happening in California. I visited California for a holiday. It was nearly 20 years ago now. It was 2004. I went on holiday to California, had a great time. I think it was one of the last years you could probably go there and still, get a feeling of the old great American culture, before people started to, have their eyes opened about Hollywood and all the wickedness that goes on there. 20 years ago, I was still believed, American culture's great, it's all the land of the free and the home of the brave and so on. So, I enjoyed my holiday in California 20 years ago, and it was still relatively sane. But, in 20 years, it's degenerated so completely. And conservatives in California, people who are sane, all seem to be moving out of the state. I don't blame them, because, who wants to live in a state where you're going to be criminalized for doing the right thing? You're going to have your kids taken from you by the state for protecting them from the alphabet people. This is just appalling. It's another example of an inversion of good and evil. And, if you're there, God bless you in fighting this. I hope this bill doesn't go through and pass, but, the people in the legislature there are almost certainly going to pass this. But we just need to be aware of it, and we need to push back on it all over the world and stop our kids, our children, from being targeted and harmed by this wicked ideology.